pressure that has been mounting on the government, the failure of its original strategy. Up till very recently, the government was adopting a much more confrontational stance towards the diaspora and to reconciliation and to the international community. Earlier, they may have thought they can go without the Western world support. With China's support, they can go forward. Now, probably they feel that it's not possible.
Do you have a concern inside you that the government is using a group of NGOs for their political agenda?
We said that there is surveillance, there is harassment of NGOs. NGO people are frightened. I myself, a few months ago, police came to my house.
Your group, the Sri Lanka Collective for Consensus, engage with the government in a secret manner or without informing others. You all actually engage with the government.
Now, this desire to regulate NGOs is not new. It's not new to this government. Even the previous government, under Ranil Wickremesinghe, and when the minister was Mano Ganeshan, they came up with legislation.
Dr. Jehan Perera, thank you for joining the show. Doctor, recently, President Gotabaya Rajapaksa made an announcement in USA that he is willing to talk with Tamil diaspora organization. What is your take on this?
I think it signifies a decision on the part of the government to adopt a new approach to dealing with this problem. Because, for instance, up till very recently, the government was adopting a much more confrontational stance towards the diaspora and to reconciliation and to the international community. But in the past 3 months, we have seen a significant shift in this approach of the government. Perhaps it is also due to the international pressure that has been mounting and which the government cannot counter. It can counter only at great cost to itself, including the possible loss of GSP plus. So I think that whatever the reason it may be, if the government actually is willing to engage in talks, in discussions, then it is something I think we should be supportive of and try and take that forward.
Doctor, now you said government actually the last 3 months taken a course direction or kind of a change in their attitude towards reconciliation. Do you believe this government's change of heart is because of the genuine like for reconciliation or ward of the pressure from the international community?
I mean, the government's actions would, of course, be would be determined also by pressure. That's also the environment. The changing environment is what makes the government also change. So I'm sure that the pressure that has been mounting on the government, the failure of its original strategy in 2019, when the president won the election, he won it on a very strong Sinhala majority vote, and thereafter he also announced that the government announced that they would be withdrawing from the Geneva process. Perhaps they thought that by withdrawing from that process, they would no longer be under obligation to fulfill the promises that the previous government had made. But then now they realize that even though they withdrew, the promises remain. The commitment that the previous government remains. And the international community is asking, and not only the international, the Tamil people, the Tamil political parties are asking the government to honor those agreements, because those are important for the Tamil people, and that's important for reconciliation to take place. So the government now has changed its thinking, because I mean the pressure has remained. It thought that by withdrawing it, the pressure would go away, but the pressure remains. And in addition to that, the government also has got kind of weakened because of the COVID, the unexpected blow of COVID. For instance, if they had been doing economically very well, then they might have thought, well, we don't need the GSP plus. We'll do without the GSP plus. That's what they said in 2010. But of course, in 2010 or so, after that, we all realized that the withdrawal of GSP plus came at a big cost to us, to the country, to the economy. A lot of people, a lot of workers lost their jobs, a lot of foreign exchange was lost. At this time, we are in a much weaker situation economically. We can't afford to lose GSP plus. So probably these are all factors that have assisted the president to want to, and the government to want to change their minds about how the way forward. Earlier, they may have thought they can go without the Western world support. With China's support, they can go forward. Now, probably they feel that it's not possible. So, therefore, now they need the Western world support. And they find that these problems that they thought would go away are not going away. And so there's a rethinking.
Doctor, responding to UN High Commissioner's statement, the new Foreign Minister GL Pires made a statement and mentioned one of the key things he mentioned that rigorous engagement with civil society. Following that, there's a group called Sri Lankan Collective for Consensus issued a statement. In that statement, said you are welcome the fresh approach by the foreign minister. Are you genuinely believe that this is a fresh approach, given the past history where repeated promises had been broken? How can you trust the new promises?
From the time we say, I mean, the Sri Lanka Collective for Consensus. That's a new group. It's actually a group of individuals from different civil society organizations. And National Peace Council is one of the organizations. There are other organizations also represented in that group. It's a loose collective. And we have all been working for a long time for peace. Our organization always stood from the very beginning when we were set up in 1995. We stood for negotiated settlement, negotiations, engagement. So we see that the present also as one of engagement and negotiation.
Doctor, excuse me. Doctor, the Sri Lanka's Collective for Consensus, the new group with 16 individuals, they have actually made a statement saying they welcome the fresh initiative by the new foreign minister to engage with the international community. But when the new foreign minister DLP stated that they are rigorously engaging with civil society, but your group, this 16 individuals, that group actually welcomed immediately foreign minister statement. But there are other groups, they are saying you all are not actually understood the ground reality. You are actually immediately welcoming the new foreign minister's statement. There's a contradiction, no?
Yeah, what we welcome is the, I mean, is the, now we welcome the president's statement also, and the foreign ministers. We reported the foreign minister's new approach, that he promised a new approach. We welcome the promise of a new approach. Now, it is correct that government was not engaging with civil society until fairly recently. And again, as you rightly point out, as far as we know, maybe they are engaging with other civil society groups also. We don't know that. But certainly they started engaging with us only about 3 months ago. the meeting with Professor G.L. Pires was part of a succession of meetings that we have had, because prior to that, over the last 3 months, we have been meeting the Foreign Secretary, Admiral Columbage. Then we met the former Foreign Minister Dinesh Gunawardena, the Justice Minister Mr. Ali Sabri, Sports Minister Namal Rajapaksa, then the President himself, and then Mr. Basil Rajapaksa, Finance Minister, and then finally Professor G.L. Pires. So there has been a series of meetings, and we did see in these meetings a new ethos that they met us with. There was no sense of hostility when they met us, or defensive. They did not argue with us. They did not contradict us. They did not say, you should not be saying this, because every single meeting that we had with them, we presented every one of them with a memorandum in which we stated the concerns that are common to all of us in civil society: issues of the PTA, issues of land grabbing, issues of missing persons, issues of enforced Muslim burial, cremation, and resistance to having Muslims being buried outside of Ottamavadi. Um, then the way that they are handling public protests. All these things, which are of great concern to all of civil society, we placed before them and said, these are our concerns. Because they wanted us to tell them what are the civil society concerns that you want us to address. And when we presented it to them, they did not, they did not arrogantly dismiss them and say, this is none of your business. You are doing this because of some other political partisan reason, or you want to support the Western countries or anything like that. They listened to us. And unfortunately, I was not able to go to the president's meeting. But the people who went to the president's meeting, who are very seasoned people, they are veterans in this area of working in civil society, working for peace, working for human rights. They were actually impressed by the president because, contrary to their expectations, president did not brush them off. President did not get angry. President listened to them. President took notes. One of our members, it was reported to me because these are my colleagues. One of the members, in fact, who comes from the East, said that, when you were elected, in your first speech, you said you will be the president of all Sri Lankans, even though all Sri Lankans didn't vote for you. But we don't feel that you're treating us equally. They said it to him, and president accepted. I mean, he did not, I don't know what he thought inside, but he did not jump and say something rude or arrogant in response. So we see signs of a new approach. We welcome that. Now, we have in all our statements, we have said, in everything we have said, ground reality must change. These are still words, but we see some signs of ground reality changing. The very fact that they are meeting us in this way, the government was a closed wall to us, a blank wall. We couldn't access them at all. We couldn't talk to them directly. Here we have talked. They have given us access to the topmost leaders of the country. And the topmost leaders have heard what we have had to say. And the topmost leaders have not reacted angrily to us. So that is a change. That actually is a change. We don't know for how long it will last. That is true. But if there's a slight change, we must take that opportunity because we believe in engagement. Even during the time of the war, we always said, government, LTT, engage with one another. We went to the government. We went to the LTT. Even though they were determined to fight each other, we were always hopeful that they would change their minds. Same here. We are hopeful that the government is also thinking of changing its mind. Maybe it has. And we always say the proof of the pudding is in the eating. We know that. And we have told them that. And we want to see change on the ground. And now with regard to the president's offer to talk to the diaspora, we welcome that. And we said, But there needs to be confidence building. You can't just go and meet the diaspora. There has to be confidence building. And what is
Doctor,
that confidence?
there are still lots of diaspora organizations still being banned. Then how can you
I know,
bring it?
exactly. So we said there has to be confidence building. And what is that confidence building? The first confidence building is do things on the ground that the people need and want, that will make the people happy, that will meet their needs, because the people have heard a lot of words, they have not seen the deeds. That's the first thing. Second thing we said, talk to the political representatives of the Tamil people, the political parties who have got the mandate from the people, the democratic mandate. Talk to them. And third, they said, lift the ban on the diaspora organizations prior to talking with them. You have to build confidence before you talk. So, I mean, we know, I mean, that these things are all difficult things, but we have outlined the process forward.
Doctor, I would like to show you a cartoon. Okay, this cartoon,
Yes.
you can see this cartoon. Okay, Doctor, following President visit to UN,
Ah,
uh, actually this cartoon is in Daily Mirror newspaper,
right,
and
right.
they said President is showing something to the world,
Yes.
for the local people, something else. So, uh, do you have a concern inside you that the government is using a group of NGOs for their political agenda?
It may well, I mean, we don't know, Arun, we really don't know, but we think from the way they spoke to us, from the succession of meetings we had, not just with one person, we had a succession of meetings. We think that there is a difference this time, but if it has no difference and they are doing it just to trick us and trick the internationals, then it's unfortunate. Then once again we will get back into not into critiquing and saying what the ground reality is. And it's not as if, I don't know if the government is thinking of tricking everyone. I don't know what the point is, because it's not as if this is a one-off thing. It's not as if the UNHRC was held and that's the end of it. Now government got over that hurdle. No, the UNHRC will meet again. And it's not as if the GSP plus problem is going to go away. At the end of the month, a delegation is coming to Sri Lanka to meet, assess what the situation is. They're going to meet us. And maybe now, if they meet me, I will tell them that the government has been open, has talked to us, has promised various things, has said they will do things step by step. Others will say different things. Others will say, maybe they will not say that, right? But then the EU delegation will go away. And if the government does nothing on the ground, the EU delegation, which went away, and the EU in Brussels will note that nothing has changed. And again, the government has to meet the UN in March. So if nothing has changed, then the problem will come back to them. And this time there won't be NGOs that will come again and say, oh, they're talking to us and we are hopeful. No, because if they don't do what they say this time, then next time maybe we will be more circumspect. But at this time, we are prepared. We are prepared to give them the benefit of the doubt. We are happy that they're engaging with us. And we are hopeful that this time there is indeed a change for the better.
Dr. Jehan, that in your that Sri Lanka's collective for consensus in the statement, you also mentioned in some point that the government is not going to monitor the NGOs, or they are not going to implement any laws against the NGOs. Is that the case, Doctor?
No, we didn't say that. That's what we want to be the case, but we did not say that. We merely said, this is what we have said in our statements. Repeatedly, we have said it. In the statement, what we gave to the president, we said it. And in the statement we gave to Professor Piris, we said it. We said that there is surveillance, there is harassment of NGOs. NGO people are frightened. I myself a few months ago, police came to my house. Of course, they didn't. The policeman who came was hardly intimidating, but still the message came. They came to my house. Then they came to my office. Not only police, they were followed by military intelligence. Military came to my in plain clothes in our to office. So we know. I mean, again, it was not terribly intimidating because we feel a little confident in Colombo and we are well connected. But we know that when that happens to others, say in the north and east, to a woman headed NGO, they must be very, very frightened. We know that. So we said that. We have said that to them. And then the second thing, there is also this plan to have NGO legislation. We are very concerned about it. I mean, the government's argument is that NGOs are registered here, there, and everywhere, and very difficult to monitor them. And some NGOs, with the money they get, they misuse it. They say that some used it for Easter Sunday. They say some used it to fund political campaigns. So they want to monitor that because these are foreign money is coming. So there is a point that they have. But what we are concerned is that they will come up with a system of like prior approval. They look at our project proposals and say, you're talking about human rights and monitoring abuses of the government. No, that's not the job for NGOs to do. So we will not permit you to do that work. You remove that from your project proposal. That we are really concerned about. So we will oppose those things. Of course, there's a limit to our strength, but we'll at least raise our voice against it. And we have told the government about this. And what we did mention in one of our releases, one of our statements was that when we have protested about this NGO legislation coming, because we have not been consulted so far, then the government informally told us, we are not coming up with it right now. It's not being rushed through. And secondly, you will be consulted on it. So, but that is in words they have told us, and we mentioned that it's informally. We want a formal statement of this.
Doctor, when I see the statements by other civil society groups, I sense that they try to portray that your group, the Sri Lanka Collective for Consensus, engage with the government in a secret manner or without informing others. You all actually engage with the government. What is the truth behind this?
No, Arun. I mean, we are all leaders of our NGOs, big NGOs with big networks. We have. I mean, my organization works in 20. I mean, we have set up inter-religious committees in 29 locations in the country. We have over 20 partner organizations which we work closely with. So, I mean, this was not done secretly. And after every meeting, we issued a press release, a public one. It was published in the papers. So this is not secret. And even when we went to big NGO meetings, we informed that we were actually having a dialogue with the government. Now, we did not go and ask the 100 NGOs of 20 other NGOs, what can we say? Can we say this? Can we say that? That, of course, because we know how NGOs feel. And if you look at the statements issued by other NGOs, by other NGO collectives, and ourselves, the same issues we have raised, the same issues that they have raised. It's simply that our approach is different. We are willing to engage with the government. We are willing to give the government a chance. We want to talk to the government because ultimately, Arun, it is only the government of Sri Lanka that can solve this problem. That the internationals cannot solve this problem. The internationals can put pressure on us, they can punish us, but they can't solve the problem. It is a Sri Lankan government that will one day solve this problem. So whenever the opportunity opens up for us to influence the Sri Lankan government, we take that opportunity. We might fail this time. Maybe this is not going to work out. But then there'll be a future time. Again, because ultimately it is the government that has to solve the problem.
Doctor, I want to show you a recent interview by the NGO Secretariat Director General. I want to show that he gave a interview to uh, Daily Mirror, Kelum
Yes,
Bandara, and he said
yes.
government to introduce fresh legislations to supervise NGOs and INGOs. Why? Because in this interview he mentioned in Sri Lanka there are about 37,000 NGOs. Is that correct number, Doctor?
I maybe Arun, I don't know, but it sound maybe there may be more even, because see the NGO depends what you call an NGO, because there are voluntary associations at the community level. Those also non-governmental organizations. So it may be even more than 37,000. Maybe 37,000 sort of very formally adopted bodies with constitutions.
So, in this interview, he is very clear that they are going to introduce fresh legislation to supervise NGOs and INGOs. Is it uh, kind of a contrary to the government's present position, or is it in line with their government's position? Because government's now saying that they are rigorously engaging with civil society and giving a space to the civil society, but coming out to the idea of introducing new legislations is something is against that, no, doctor?
See, government in our discussions with them, they never said they won't come up with the legislation. The only thing they said was that they won't rush it through now,
Mhm.
and they will discuss it with us before. And I think the NGO director himself says that there'll be a comprehensive sort of discussions with NGOs.
Mhm.
Now, this desire to regulate NGOs is not new. It's not new to this government. Even the previous government, under Ranil Wickremesinghe, and when the minister was Mano Ganeshan, they came up with legislation also, which the NGOs at that time, I think it was 2018, which we opposed very strongly because we said it is too controlling. And then finally we asked for a meeting with the prime minister, and it actually was approved by the cabinet, I believe. The cabinet approved that draft law. And at that stage, we went to the prime minister because we couldn't stop it. We went to the prime minister and told him that this is objectionable. It violates our freedom of association, which is constitutionally protected. And the prime minister accepted that argument, and then the legislation was, I think, withdrawn, and it never came again. So it's not new. And then even I think this Raja Gunaratna uh, in his interview there, he also says it. I think in 2010 also it came up, this issue. So for a long time there has been this thing, this desire on the part of the government to regulate NGOs. And I think the core of the argument is this, that NGOs are registered here and there, and that they bring in foreign money, and so government wants to know what that money is used for, whether it is used for terrorist activities, whether it is used to support political parties, can be channeled to political parties. That I think is their concern, which I think is a legitimate concern. But what is not legitimate is if they try to control the content of what we are doing. If some government commissar is there to tell us, you can talk about building houses, but you're not going to talk about transitional justice or human rights.
Mhm.
That will be very objectionable. And so we will oppose that. We will take it to courts because our constitution does provide for freedom of association, freedom of expression, freedom of conscience, and those things we must have as NGOs.
Uh, Doctor, following the calls by Catholic priest uh, to have a comprehensive investigation on the Easter attacks, and they after they actually informed that they might go to international inquiry kind of a calls, there's another group of religious leaders recently come out in the media and said these people are like the previous Prabhakaran's people, and they also actually working against the government. Now these also working against the government. It's an international conspiracy. It's kind of a, in the past also, when certain NGOs, including people like you, raise some human rights issue, you all being portrayed as traitors. Now a similar trend is emerging. How do you see this trend, doctor?
Of course, in society, there are people who hold all sorts of views. So there is now this group that is accusing the church, the Catholic Church, of maybe being traitors for going to the internationals. But the reason people go to the international community, like the Tamil people have and Tamil political parties have, is when they don't get justice within the country. So now the same thing has happened to the Catholic Church. They feel they're not getting justice. The truth is not being ascertained. So then, in desperation, then they say, we will go to the international, because they feel the international pressure is something that no one wants to have. And yeah, so then that opens them up to the charge that they are traitors, which we have heard before. But I think that this opinion being expressed is not a mainstream opinion. It is the opinion of a small extreme group of people, which is given some media coverage, but not a lot of media coverage. It's coming on the social media, not, I think, on the mainstream media at this time. I don't believe, I don't know, maybe there are political leaders in the government who also promote that type of thing, because they don't want, the truth is inconvenient, maybe. So it was inconvenient to the previous government. It is maybe inconvenient to the present government also, the truth.
Doctor, when this government came to power, they promised a lot, and people also voted in a significant manner. And following that, the economic situation got worsened over the last 1.5 years, more than 1.5 year period. Now, those who really supported also now talking about leaving the country, migrating to other nation. You can see so much of discussions in the social media forum, especially. You also have two daughters. So now, um, are you really concerned about the future of this country?
Yes, yes, I have three daughters, so I'm even more concerned than if I had two. I'm concerned about the future. Yes, we are all concerned about the future, but we made a choice to stay in the country. I lived abroad, I studied abroad, but I felt more comfortable in my own country.
You studied at Harvard, no, doctor?
Yes,
Isn't
I
it?
studied at Harvard. Yes, I did. Um, yeah, so my children, they a lot of people are migrating now. They feel hopeless. That corruption is very high. Everything, this lot of things this government promised, they are not delivering on. That's why we are hopeful that there will be a new approach, a fresh approach, as Professor Peer said. And one test of that, a quick test of that, might be what they do in the case of this minister of prisons, who has behaved from what all we know, from in an outrageous manner. That might be a first indication of whether the change is taking place, or whether it will be politics as usual, where more importance is given to retaining political power, retaining votes, retaining all alliances, all friendships. The rule of law must prevail. And let's see. I mean, I really don't know what's going to happen about that, even about that. But
Uh,
with regard to reconciliation, Arun, I'm optimistic, because I feel that among the community, among government officials that we work with, I mean, today I spoke to government officials in Mathura district on the Zoom, of course, because we are in a lockdown. I have a strong feeling that They want to learn about a plural society, what pluralism means, what giving space to every community means, what justice means, interethnic justice, what sharing power means, how to share power, how to decide together when we are ethnic majority and ethnic minorities. There is, and the sense that terrible things happened in the past, they must not happen again. That people suffered, that Tamils suffered. I think that's all there. And if that is true, then the pathway is open to change. And also at this time, at this particular time, we have an opposition, the mainstream opposition, which I think will support, will not oppose, will not burn tires on the road, will not burn constitutions inside the parliament. The mainstream opposition, including the JVP, I think they're all wanting this problem to be solved. That we can all, that every political party, every community will have their place, will be respected, will will decide together. I think that is that in the country. Now the question is whether our political leaders are up to that challenge. Professor Piris, I believe, is a man who actually understands all of this. He has the intellectual capacity to see the need for systems of checks and balances, of interethnic power sharing. I mean, he was an architect of that 25, 30 years ago with Dr. Neelan Tiruchelvam. He brought forward with Neelan Tiruchelvam the most extensive power sharing agreement this country has ever seen a government bring. So now he's back again at the helm. He's representing the country. I'm hopeful. But at the same time, I know that things are terrible on the ground for people. The militarization is there. People continue to live in fear. There's surveillance. All of that is also there.
Doctor, you said government not only come up with the words, they have to take some confident building measures. What are the immediate, mid-term, and long-term measures the government needs to take in order to bring confidence among society and international community?
I think immediately what they can do very fast, they can do is to release the LTT prisoners. That they can do very fast. Secondly, they can change some of the appointments they have made to the important commissions, such as the Human Rights Commission, the Office of Missing Persons, the Office for Reparations, the Office of National Unity and Reconciliation. Those are the reconciliation mechanisms. They can change some of those appointments. They can appoint better people, people who have track records. And ideally, they should consult the minority parties about that, about those appointments, because it's very important to the minority parties. Um, in the longer term, I think they should, in the medium term, they should have the provincial elections. I know it's difficult because of the COVID situation, but they should aim at doing that, because in that way, then Tamil people will have power in our country, and at least in the north and east. And they will be able to then make their contribution. They can also contribute to development and reconciliation as elected leaders. And in the longer term, still, the constitution needs to be changed, the laws need to be changed, the systems of checks and balances need to be brought back to ensure sustainability of all these reforms that are being made.
Dr. Jehan Perera, thank you very much for joining the show.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.